Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a very, very interesting session. I think it's interesting. I'm not sure if you will find it interesting, but by the end of the session, if you fill out the evaluation, we will find out. The name of the session is Columnstore killed the OLAP-Star. And the important part is, of course, the question, did it really? Before we kick off, I would like to ask the questions, which I usually ask the people before we dive in. Who are the developers working just with the relational engine here? Wow, oh, I feel better. I feel already almost safe. All right, who are the BI professionals here? Okay.
I like that part.
Yes, I know. Total disaster for me. Okay, and who is using SSIS analysis services? Wow. And who enjoys using the analysis services? Okay, it doesn't look good to me. No, you're all fine. It's just I'm looking for the exit. All right, so my name is Niko Neugebauer. This is Gabi, and we are announcing right now our third presenter. Our third presenter has a very common database name. His name is Jason XML, and he will be responsible for answering all of your questions because me and Gabi, quite honestly, we've got no idea what we're talking about. All right? So please silence your cell phones unless you want us to find out your cell phone number and to call you later. Please explore everything that PASS has to offer, starting with 24 hours of PASS, different local groups. Who are attending the local user groups? Please raise your hand. Okay, for those of you who do not, these are actually typically monthly free events in the major cities all around the world, so if you're not, consider doing this. Also, who has been ever to a SQL Saturday? Okay, great. For those of you who have never been to SQL Saturday, it's a one-day free event, typically on Saturday because it's called SQL Saturday. And it's a free event with a lot of people who are presenting on this conference, so it should be quite good. There are also virtual groups. You can watch the presentation online. Maybe you can start presenting online. There is Business Analytics Day, and if you want, you can become a PASS volunteer. All right?
And that's very important because volunteers are also making these events possible, so.
Absolutely. So don't forget the session evaluation. If you liked our session, please fill it out. If you did not, well.
Also please fill it out, but write something which makes us get better in the future.
Yeah. But
if that's possible on your side, Niko, I don't know.
Yeah, so, but please be kind. All right? So let me introduce my co-presenter, Gabi Münster. She's a consultant, works at the company OH22. Her professional focus is on analysis services, reporting services, and something which is called master data services. Just who is using master data services? Wow, great. We're in a great company. All right. So she is a PASS member since 2008, and she's a PASS Germany chapter lead. She spoke at a lot of different events, presented, even did a pre-con, and it's not in the slides, but she's a data platform MVP since 1 month.
Yeah, and let me just present oh, sorry, you already did. The main speaker of this, no. We are Niko Neugebauer. I think everybody who read about Columnstore, worked with Columnstore, tried to learn something about Columnstore, knows Niko. He's also working at a company called OH22. How surprising. That is how we get to know each other. No, we know each other from my first SQL Saturday. This is where I first met Niko. And he's doing a lot of different things for PASS. He created the first European PASS chapter in Portugal. He organized a lot of PASS events. He's talking at a lot of events. And yeah, actually, and how long are you in Data Platform MVP? I don't.
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
All right. Can we go?
Yeah.
And so, for those of you who enjoy the PASS and who enjoy the analysis services, just a word of warning. Just, you gotta be ready to, to breathe in and breathe out through the next couple of slides. So I'm a very arrogant person, if you never heard about this. And my point is, why using SSIS? Are there any reasons to use analysis services at all? I mean, I feel like exactly like this fine gentleman. I'm like, why? What are the reasons? From my point of view, from the point of view of the relational engine guy, I mean, I put some tables, I can build some store procedures so the people with the reporting services or whatever, Power BI, they can access the data. And it will be very good because I built it, right? So my reasons are, so for using analysis services, the reason number one is you're like, wow, I can use analysis services. So the reason number two, you are kind of this gentleman because in my point of view, everyone should be using just the T-SQL and the relational engine, right? Who is agreeing with me? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people. Perfect number. All right, so there is number 3 as well. And that's if you look like this. So you can do, anybody can throw any data warehousing problem at you and you will just use the nunchaku and you will battle it away. That's how it is. So the reason number 4, and it includes all of you who raise your hand using analysis services, you are exceptions. I am the rule, you are the exceptions. Don't get offended, please. It's a good thing. So every time a client comes to us and say, let us build a data warehouse. So this is what the imaginations of all the clients look like. The data warehouse will look like, exactly like a data center, and all those beautiful lights with different colors that will be lighting, and everything will be fine. And I think that the most data warehousing projects, they will end like this very ugly clip art. This is my experience. This is my expectation from a data warehousing project. So, just a word of warning, there will be no happy ending in my story. So for me, sometimes the clients, just sometimes, never, they will come and say, I need somebody to help us build data warehouse. He should be very proficient in relational schema building, in TSQL, understand the performance engine tuning, and of course, we're using reporting services, so he or she better be, very good, very proficient, and of course, we will be using both flavor of the analysis services, so very basic requirements. So I tend to show them this picture. It's like, you want a good, you want it fast, and you want it cheap. What do your clients respond to that? Yes, yes, and yes, right? Okay, nobody's agree. I'm doing well. All right, so basic skill requirements is T-SQL, engine performance tuning, MDX, DAX, and just if you think about the military, if you transfer what is required from us, it will be a soldier capable, it's like a Rambo, He's driving a tank, he's flying a plane, helicopter, whatever, everything.
Submarine, don't forget submarine.
Yes, submarine is very important. I love in the movies when somebody, enters the submarine and starts driving it. Makes a lot of sense to me. All right, so this is how I feel. If you ever seen the show, you know what I mean. If you don't, you do not. So the reason number 0 why I do not like using SSIS, now without the jokes, is money. If you are running an SSIS, who is running their analysis services on the very same instance with this relational engine? Okay, I would say there were less hands than the number of people running analysis services. Who has had ever some problems of running 2 or 3 engines at the same virtual machine? I did. Okay, a couple more people. Okay, I'm starting to win, I feel it. Right, really. So most of the time, it will be, or it's my experience, the analysis services will be running on different hardware, which means you need to spend more money, right? If you're running a Windows server, and there is no analysis services for Linux, not even with 2017, which means You need to pay the license for this, for that, so it's a lot of money. Also, if you are using a tabular, do you need a lot of memory? Sometimes. And of course, have you seen the marketing slides and advertisement that you can get 24 terabytes for your Windows server, right? Can you please raise a hand if you have 24 terabytes on your server? What about 12? Maybe 2 terabytes? Okay, 2 hands, 3, 4. Okay, so, okay, 5 hands. Beautiful. So, but the memory, no matter how we put it, also costs money. And then you need knowledge in people. And what I found that a lot of time in the real project, what the clients will experience is that there are 2 different teams, sometimes even from different consulting companies. One team is building a relational engine, and the other team is doing analysis services. Who has experienced such configurations? A couple of people. Well, have you ever seen those 2 teams successfully communicating? Okay. Gabi is betraying me at this moment. Okay. So, but I still reclaim knowledge and people. And it's not easy to find a good person knowing analysis services. At least maybe in my experience. Maybe I'm wrong. Okay, yes, there are. So I say, hand me the keys, and I need to calm down, and I want to talk about the Columnstore indexes. I love Columnstore indexes. For me, Columnstore indexes is the best feature since SQL Server 1.0, and they solve all the problems for data warehousing. Always, forever. Who agrees with me? Okay, a couple of people. I'm doing very fine. So who has heard about the Columnstore indexes? Wow, everybody. Who is using Columnstore indexes? Yeah, this is almost like a flawless victory. Who is using tabular or Power Pivot and not using Columnstore indexes? Okay, that makes sense, because you know that it's the same technology underlying under the tabular or under the Power Pivot, right? So it's Columnstore indexes. So the concept is very old. It's 1969. The first known to me company was actually Canadian Statistician Agency, which tried to implement their own database. And, well, there is Sybase IQ. Did anybody try to work or work with? Yeah, 2 people. Successfully? Okay, like this. Okay, that's the most typical answer. So Columnstore technology appeared in Microsoft in 2010, in Excel, as Power Pivot. Then we had the parallel data warehouse, and basically, I would say we have a here, which is the Azure SQL data warehouse, using extensively Columnstore indexes. And since 2012 and 14, 16, 17, and hopefully vNext, there will be huge improvements, and they were getting faster, faster, and faster. So my point, you do not need analysis services. They are so fast. All right? So columnar storage, where can you get it? In 2012, well, you have the tabular, the first version. Who liked the first version of the tabular analysis services? Okay, good, a couple of people, great. So 2014, 2016, 2017, you can see on the slides the progress of the analysis services and also progress of the Columnstore relational indexes, which are improving the speed to incredible numbers. And of course, besides the tabular, right now we have Azure PaaS, which are Azure Analysis Services. Who tried them? Okay, a couple of people. You should. If there are sessions on analysis services during the summit, and there should be, attend them. It looks really, really interesting. All right, so relational columnar didn't start that well in my point of view. In 2012, well, you could, little limitation, you could not load more data directly, but of course you could, data warehousing people know what it means to switch the partitioning into the table, right? So there were solutions. There were some other problems, like it didn't work fast as advertised in a lot of cases because of the unfinished implementation of the batch execution mode, but right now it's full access, great speed. I enjoyed it greatly. So, standard. What should we say about the standard? It's a gold standard. Can we do that Columnstore thing in standard edition? And if you did not heard, since Service Pack 1, right about 11 and a half months ago, last year, Microsoft announced, yes, you can have Columnstore indexes in standard edition. And there are some important disk access prefetching mechanisms that actually work like enterprise edition. The Columnstore indexes are limited to 2 cores of processing, but they are available for 2016 Service Pack 1 and later edition, and for 2017, you can get standard edition and use the Columnstore indexes. Basically, in my books, you can run queries on 2016 Service Pack 1 standard faster than on 2016 Enterprise Edition that is not using the Columnstore indexes. This is how fast they are, okay? There is some cap, but don't worry. I talked to a lot of people, and most basically agree. There is some additional user cache in memory limitation. Nobody ever seen something arrive to this limit, so it works fine. And don't forget, you can have Columnstore indexes even in Express Edition. Yes, you can download a free edition of the SQL Server, and you can build Columnstore indexes. Even though the database is limited to 10 gigabytes, you know that the Columnstore indexes can do 10, 20, sometimes 50 times compression. So you have, maybe 50 gigabytes, maybe you can put it on Express. I don't know if everybody will be happy with me doing this advertisement, but well, it's too late. We are on Past TV Live. All right, so Service Pack 1, the best service pack ever. One of the latest and one of the last, because there will be no more for the newest versions. All right, so some limitations, of course. How tough it is to build the Columnstore indexes. Who was challenged by building the Columnstore indexes? Please raise your hand. Really? Wow. What were the problems? Just
the mind shift, understanding.
No, I'm not. So the answer of the gentleman was the mind shift. Yes, when you are trying to get the best speed out of it, but executing something like this is pretty easy, right? Of course, you have some limitation in different version. 2014, you couldn't have some secondary indexes, and you cannot. If you want to have a change data capture in 2016 or 17, you need to do non-clustered indexes. But I guess my 8-year-old son is capable of writing. Maybe it will take 5 minutes, but he will be able to create a Columnstore index on the table. That's how difficult it is, all right? So, yes, these are basically some of the changes that came, and actually computed columns. Did you know? Who loves computed columns? Data warehousing people? Yeah, a couple of you. Did you know that they're in 2017 for clustered Columnstore? So for the data warehousing people, we can start using the computed columns. Of course, non-persistent only. I'm sorry. Not my fault. All right? So there are some recommendations and so on and so forth. I want to bring you to the mention. So who is using replication in data warehousing, right? Non-clustered Columnstore indexes are only supported right now, 2016 and 2017. So be ready and be mindful of what you are doing and how you implement, because there are limitations and changes. All right, so Columnstore indexes, you all understand. I think I don't need to show you all the basics. If you're working with big data, and your data should be really big, because if you have just like 500,000 rows, your data is not big, right? Okay, you need to have a couple of million rows. So let me show you some examples. So how I decide that the Columnstore indexes, how I decide for myself and for the others as well. So why the Columnstore indexes are fast? We decided to take a test. We pre-generated 10 gigabyte database of the TPCH. If you have never heard about this, discover, download, it's a free tool which is called HammerDB. You can generate terabytes of the TPCH style, which is a like international sample database for all producers, Oracle, IBM, whatever. This is how Microsoft announced great results. And what I've heard, they're generating their database with HammerDB. So you can generate, like us, we took, I'm sorry, the internet is slow here on my screen. We took and generated, we have here a number of different databases. Does it work? No, it's not. I'm sorry, just a second. My Zoom it gone. Gabi, where is Zoom it?
See.
Sorry, it's on the C, on the Zoom it, yes. Thank you very much. So we generated different databases to run queries. For some reason, I need to initiate it twice. So I will be showing you, hopefully when the Zoom it starts. Wow, that's beautiful. So we have TPCH database, as you can see here. Oh gosh, I love this response time. Next time, please don't just silence your phones, just get out of the network, sorry. Just a joke. You know, for the presenters, it makes sense. I'm not complaining yet. Gabi can confirm. So we have generated 1 gigabyte, 10 gigabyte, and even 100 gigabyte. Most of my demos will be running against 10 gigabyte TPCH schema with line item and orders tables. All right, please get out of this mode. Yes, almost. All right, so I went and I started running different queries. So test queries. So I ran the original query against the TPCH 10 gigabyte raw store version of the database, and the original non-optimized execution against the raw store. A quality execution took 2 minutes and 5 seconds. It's not really fast. I don't expect any report to take this amount of time. At least I don't know any patients from my clients. So I created the index, I ran it again, it took 21 seconds. So basically the best result was this. I went to my TPCH 10 gigabytes Columnstore database and ran the same query, and it took me around 4 seconds most of the time. Yes, 4 seconds. Right? So 4 seconds. I don't know if I can zoom it. Yes, I can zoom it. Okay? So 4 seconds. I don't know about you, but I kind of like to tune the queries. I started looking at the query exactly, and I rewrote it a little bit. If you do not understand the advanced features of the 2016 or 2017, you should, because there is something very beautiful called aggregate predicate pushdown, and it works. So I took my query into the second area. Okay? It took 1 second, and the execution plan looks beautiful. If I have like 60 million rows in my table, and there is 0 rows, because there are 0 rows right here, coming out, it means the storage engine itself, while reading the data, has made all the calculations. So it's instant. I can run it on 100 gigabyte. It will be milliseconds most of the time. It will not reach even 1 second. This is how fast it is. So you can say, well, that's just a sum query. But I went and, you know, let's try to run some max calculation. I swear to you, I'm not running 122 seconds test, but I can tell you that from 122 seconds, I executed it, and I went to which number? 2.3 seconds. This is execution, just by moving from raw store and column store. And my point is, For all the SaaS people who are saying, you know, we're building the cubes because your engine is slow. I mean, take a look at this. Does 20 times faster does not excite the people? So it should be, it should be. And then I went, and who loves running distinct counts on multi-dimensional? 1, 2.
What?
Does it work well? It works. Okay, I shut up. That's a good argument. It works. So I have heard that the tabular is a little bit better on that, but I need to a little bit, just a little bit. You know, so roll-store query doing 3 distinct counts on the relational engine, 21.9 seconds. You know, I go with the Columnstore, and you know that always. 2017. This version is so smart, sometimes it optimizes so well. So it's not 2.2, this execution 3.4 seconds. So comparing to 21.9, it's a very, very great improvement. And I don't have to do anything. I just create the column store index, it just works. All right? And so I went even to strings, trying to measure the strings. And I did run the test, and using the CCI version, it took me, the first one is 31 milliseconds, using a different query, 7.1 seconds, and another one doing distinct counts on the string, which is the most problematic area for the column stores right now, or one of the most problematic areas. It's 11.9 seconds. So I do admit there are scenarios you will not get like 5-second response, even when you expect them. So I also went and ran different execution queries for TPCH, which you can find online, the query 1, the query 7, the query 21. And the result of my executions, let me just show you on the dashboard. Every time I use Excel, I can say the word dashboard. I like it. Or I can even say executive dashboard. Yes. So I don't want to steal more time from Gabi that I already did, because I'm almost executing the, taking all the time. So the first time I ran, this is the query. The difference, it was, just to visualize, it's a huge, huge difference, okay? And you would say one of the queries for the roll store goes for 47 seconds CPU time and 73 seconds overall. If you go to the column store, it takes 2 seconds. So if you do not using column store for your processing, even to put in the data into the analysis services, if you're 2016, 2017, you're doing it wrong. You're wrong, people. I'm sorry. All right? So column store is the best thing since the sliced bread, if you didn't know it. And I will even, this is the most violent example that I have. So the roll store query, 132 seconds, and it's using a windowing function here. So I'm using here the lead function with the partitioning, of course. So it went from 132 seconds, which is basically people already left the building, into 9 seconds. They went for a coffee, which is different. It's starting to become accessible. And so I made my case. I feel like I'm #winning, right? Any questions is for Jason XML. And let's get back to Gabi.
Yeah, and okay, you made your case. I fully agree. Well, if I remember correctly, you started out doing something like several reasons why to use analysis services, or maybe why not to use analysis services. Okay, money is one case we would need to discuss, but apart from money, the only reason you actually had was performance.
Yes, what else matters?
Performance definitely is very important, I agree. And so in this case, we should look at some of those queries if you want to use them in SSAS. So what I did is I built a multi-dimensional model based on the same TPCH 10 gigabyte database, and I also built a tabular model based on the same database. What I didn't do, just to keep in mind, you said something like you will need a lot of knowledge. Of course, analysis services isn't the easiest thing you can do in BI, maybe. I agree, it's not that easy, especially if you want to do it right and if you want to get out the most performance. But one question before, in how many cases when you wrote those TPCH queries and tried out to get the best performance, in how many cases did you find out that when you rewrite the query, you're getting much better performance?
Well, 1, 2, maybe 3, maybe 4 cases. Who cares?
Yeah, but I remember you telling me about one case where it took you how many lines of code maybe to get the query running?
Well, the original query was just like maybe 4 lines I had to rewrite in 1.5 pages, but it went blazingly fast. Who cares, right?
So just thinking about the end users having this knowledge going directly on a relational engine and having to know which queries to rewrite to get this. How was this aggregate predicate push down thing and some such?
Yeah.
I agree. Analysis services is a special case. You will need special knowledge, but it's not like you can get Columnstore just. Let's say getting the best performance out of Columnstore optimized tables is not as easy as just creating the Columnstore index. There's a little bit more to it. And what I did in this case is I built this multidimensional and tabular model without trying to optimize anything. So I just took the tables as they are. So this is far away from any really good data model I would normally do if I tried to create a cube, but I tried to do something. So let's start with multidimensional. And to be honest, I will not run most of the queries in this case because they are not really fast in this not optimized model. But just to show what I did is I created the queries before and I ran them and tried to find out how fast this is. If we're starting out with something like just getting the results we had before, just getting out the profit, for example, over everything. This is something which I can run even on a cold cache. So if I just empty the cache again and run this query, of course, this is something which multidimensional actually, so if I ran the profiler again, it's not displaying all the time. But if I ran this on analysis services, this is something which multidimensional is meant for. You're doing aggregations on a very high level. This is pretty fast. This is something which you can do pretty well. If we are talking about something like calculating min dates, maximum dates, something like this, like Niko did before, this is also something which still is pretty fast and multidimensional. You're doing aggregations. This is exactly what we are doing here. You don't need to do anything special. You even don't need to implement this up front. You can just do this by writing your custom code or giving this to your customer. Another topic definitely is distinct counts. As we already said before, distinct counts is not really the biggest strength of multidimensional. In this case, I just wrote distinct count calculated members, which is probably the worst thing you can do. So if I would just rewrite this, create distinct count members in the server, or even better, at least for one distinct count member, if you know what you need, create a distinct measure group for this. Performance would get much better, but this is never anything you really will get out the best performance of multidimensional. And despite what we're doing, it will never be the case. Same thing with distinct count with comments, what Niko already said or did before. This is also something which, let's say, you don't want to do it. So from a performance perspective, in a lot of cases you actually need right now, multidimensional might not be a better solution than Columnstore indexes in the relational data warehouse would be. If we're looking at the same queries in tabular, for example, which, as you said before, actually is based on the same technology.
No matter what happens, Columnstore is winning.
That's right. Then, of course, you will get much better results. This is something which you can just run and run. You can do this. You can calculate your minimum and maximum dates. You can do something like a So what I did is I just wrote the same query. So min date, max date. What I do here is something like doing a top count, or this is one of the TPCH queries you already had before. Just going down to the other queries. I'm doing something like, let me just make this a little bit smaller. So the other queries I wrote is something like doing the distinct count over several measures, doing a distinct count on line items, and doing a top count thing. So all those queries are pretty fast. Maybe if you're doing this on Columnstore native in the engine, it might be a little bit faster, but if we're talking about blazing fast, I think this is still the case. Who of you went to the keynote this morning and saw the New York taxi demo? Yeah, this is something which Power BI, actually using a tabular model in the background as well, is doing as well as showing the same results with. Who of you went to Kamal Hati's BI session afterwards? So if you thought Power BI was quick with this 10 billion rows query in that before, in the session afterwards, Christian Wade was doing a similar topic, but with 1 trillion rows in a query, and he did exactly the same, and the results were there at the same time. This is something which some new developments which still are to come, but if we're talking about performance with tabular, you're going to get there even at the same problems you had with Columnstore. So from a performance perspective, there still is a possibility to do this. But Niko is right when he asks, so if we are getting the same or nearly the same performance, why invest time in creating a tabular model, in doing a model on top? Why not just go down to the database, use what you have in hand? And my answer to this is we're talking about a BI semantic model in this case. So what is it what we are talking about and what we want to need? We're talking about BI, business intelligence. So what we are doing here is we are creating something more than just the relational data warehouse. We are talking about additional information, additional calculations about business logic implemented into our model. And semantic is something which is really important in my case. So if we think about, let's say, normally we have our relational data warehouse. We have a lot of key users doing something like self-service BI. And if you think about now at the moment, maybe it's your power users or your main key users doing this. You let them go onto your relational data warehouse using Power BI, creating their own models. It's something like you have 1,000 users and 10 or maybe 50 of them are doing their models because they understand the background of the data. They understand what they are doing there. And for example, by using Power BI, they don't have to create all of their queries. They have to access the data, they have to find the correct data, but they are creating a new model and working on this model later on. And this is something they can share and they can use for collaboration inside the company. If I would think about all my 1,000 users needing to do something, getting data out of the database using T-SQL statements by getting directly to my relational database without any security, without any control, how they will access the data without providing them some semantics of how to read the data, how to access the data, this definitely is something which I'm a little bit afraid, no, not a little bit, I'm really afraid of. This is something I just don't want to have in my company. So access regulation, load balancing, yeah, of course, it is fast, but it makes a difference if, apart from what you're doing there.
No, I will interrupt you and I'll tell you two things. First of all, load balancing, we can have it on SQL Server as well. And T-SQL, those thousands of users, they should learn T-SQL. Because T-SQL, if you didn't know, it's one of the most successful, important, and I would say even beautiful development languages ever.
Yeah, you're right. I myself like T-SQL.
Okay.
But, well, the next part, apart from having users learn to write T-SQL, is you have front-end tools already available. You have reporting tools like reporting services working perfectly fine with T-SQL, no problem. But you have other front-end tools used for ad hoc reporting, something like
so
this.
use machine learning
They are working with MDX. Very, very good, but most of them are not working with T-SQL. So this is also something which is the reason for using standard technologies, using something which I'm not against new development. I'm not against new technologies, but in some cases, it just makes sense not to change everything at a time. Apart from that, I had this point of business intelligence. If you're talking about key KPIs in your system, so if I go to my main customer and ask 3 different controllers of how to calculate, okay, maybe revenue wouldn't be the case, but let's say revenue, I'm pretty sure I get 4 different answers. And that's what is happening if they are trying to create reports based on this data and presenting this to their superiors. So those superiors will get back to me and will ask, so I have 3 different reports with the same KPI and 4 different results. How is this possible? And this is something which I would like to control as an IT department, to say that those definitions of really important key KPIs needs to be centralized, needs to be stored in a single point of business logic truth. And this is what the BI semantic model is for. So BI semantic model, you probably all know this picture, is what analysis services in Microsoft BI is meant for. You have the combination of multidimensional and tabular in this case, and since SQL Server 2016, there is something like, you could say a statement that everything can be used for everything, because both querying languages, MDX and DAX, can be used to access both systems. I will not say it makes sense to use both languages to query both versions, but it's possible. And you can use both of those systems with all your standard front-end tools. You can load a lot of different data sources inside. And while we're talking about having a lot of different data sources feeding data into your BI semantic model, Columnstore index is perfectly fine when you're talking about getting data out of SQL Server to feed your reporting, but what are you doing when you need to add data from different data sources?
I load everything into SQL Server by using T-SQL.
Might be a solution, but at least this is something where you can close this gap with analysis services, especially if we're talking about tabular, Azure Analysis Services, Power BI, by just saying you can give Power BI as a self-service tool to your users. They will be able to identify their requirements, and in this case, doing a lot of your work, because they will give you a ready model containing all the data they want, containing all the definitions they need. And you can just take this in Azure Analysis Services and import this into...
Wait. You say they take my work and I let them?
Yes.
Okay.
But you can just import this into Azure Analysis Services, and then you can start doing your work again and integrating this into your IT department landscape, making this work, making this a bigger picture out of the small self-service solutions. But you have a possibility to close the gap between the urgent business needs the business has to get data quickly, to combine data from different sources, and to react to this. And this is something which Azure Analysis Services or Analysis Services Incomplete allows you to do. Why those 2 flavors of analysis services? Does it make sense today? So let's start with the small comparison. You all know this, you've seen this several times, but currently multidimensional is for larger data sets than tabular. If I think about seeing something in Power BI, just taking a table with 1 trillion rows, putting this on the canvas and just getting results directly, well, let's say if we're talking about size, it's getting a little bit complicated to say when tabular stops and multidimensional starts. But there are just different strengths and weaknesses we are talking about. So multidimensional is very good at aggregations on high levels, complex calculations. Well, scalability, tabular is getting better more and more. But there are some functionalities like named sets, like write-back, like data mining, which multidimensional still offers, which tabular cannot solve at the moment. But we have to admit that tabular is getting stronger and stronger. But in my opinion, at the moment, it just is not a possibility to completely replace multidimensional. But you have to be pretty aware of what your requirements are, what the necessity, your best technical choice would be, and now you have the possibility to decide. If we're talking about security, well, if you have some complex security scenarios, in my experience, multidimensional still is better to implement this, but something like calculated tables, for example, and tabular allow, and the bidirectional filter, of course, allow you to do a little, definitely more. So, if we're talking about multidimensional in a nutshell, you all know this. You have cubes, dimensions, roles for your security. You have the possibility to implement data mining structures. You can do custom calculations either in your business logic or in your queries. You have the possibility to either use OLAP, the completely aggregated part or pre-calculated part. You can use rollup or a hybrid scenario. You have your aggregations pre-calculated, which is advantage and disadvantage at the same time. You always have to calculate this in your environment design. And it's disk stored, which actually is not really up to date, but it still works in a lot of cases because, of course, disk space is a lot cheaper than memory at the moment. So tabular, on the other hand, and internet really is not that good, just uses tables and relationships between tables, calculated measures, and also roles for security. You can also do your calculated columns, measures, and tables to build up your logic based on these tables you have implemented. Everything is stored in memory, or you can use a direct query mode, like the roll-up mode in multidimensional. And as Niko mentioned at the beginning, this is Columnstore based. And so what we already said before is, or what I already mentioned is, we're living in interesting times. So if we're talking a modern data warehouse, like I said before, we're talking about different data sources. You don't want to always build an ETL process or ELT process to extract your data from any other data source, integrate it in your SQL data warehouse, and then afterwards allow the users to access the data. You have to react faster. And apart from having structural data available, you also will need to think about data lake, about unstructured data, about big data, and this is also something which Azure Analysis Services, which Tabular Mode, which Power BI already allow at this time to be integrated. Sorry?
My data is big.
Yeah, I know. So, and if we're talking about how intermingled data can get, then actually I sometimes feel when I think about how those data run together, like I'm losing my direction or my sense of direction. So let's compare again analysis services versus Columnstore. If we're talking about performance, Columnstore is either better or at least as good as SSAS is. But if we're talking about having solutions where you really need your end users to access your data directly, to really build their own models, to really build their own reports and dashboards, from my perspective, it's really important to keep your single point of business truth, to keep your access regulations, to keep your security on top. And this is something which an analysis services offers you out of the box. When we discussed this before, there was something like, what are you doing if you want to implement some business logic? And I remember you saying something like, yeah, you can put views or store procedures on top. So
computed columns?
This is, but this is nothing else but creating a new model on top. So why not use a proven technology which is there, which is available, which also improves over time a lot. And this is something which really is interesting. Another part, and we will come to this in a few minutes, is would there be a possibility to combine both ways by using rollup or direct query, using the semantic model offered by analysis services and the performance advantages you get by Columnstore? But just to answer, so one question I said, there's also a change of mind. We already talked about that when we talk about how data warehouse or BI developers thought about when I need to implement a model solution for my customers, what do I need to do? Before 2012, before Columnstore, it was always something like, what do I need to build models on large data? I always need cubes. And when do I want it? Actually is now or yesterday. I don't know what we wrote there, I'm sorry. Between 2012 and 2014, it was always something like, we want to have tabular models and we want to have it right now. Currently, I would say it changed to, now we have a perfect choice of different solutions which allow us to use the best or to choose the best technology for the use case we actually have. So to answer the question at all, did Columnstore kill the OLAP-Star? In my opinion, maybe in yours as well, it didn't. But actually, it is something where there are use cases for. So for example, if you only have a standardized reporting, just using relational data out of your SQL server, where it doesn't make sense to build a semantic model on top, which will be additional workload. But there are a lot of use cases where this BI semantic model is really important. And in this case, analysis services is the tool to choose. But as I said before, direct query and rollup, and this is also something, and now we will switch back to Niko. This is also something which we wanted to try out, and therefore we created the same models we had before as in memory or as, so vielleicht ist es
okay.
So as in memory or as in multidimensional, as a rollup and as a direct query model, just to see how this behaves. I remember that I tried this before without using Columnstore, and performance really wasn't very good. And you said, let's just try and let's see how the queries look like that come out of this.
Well. So let's talk about the direct query and rollup. But first of all, before I will take over, #winning, I want to ask, how many people were convinced by the examples of Gabi? Oh,
thank you very
really? That's a total disaster for me. Okay, but I got a couple of minutes. I might be able to change the situation. Let's see. So, why direct query? I don't have this funny slide because when do we want direct query? Yeah, right now, cubes, tabular, whatever. So, why would somebody want direct query or rollup? Why? Yes? To save memory? Okay. Low latency, yes. Low latency. Have you ever seen with those two low latency? No, neither. I haven't seen a high latency as well. I've seen crazy latency, but it's just my experience. So, have you ever heard the request is we want online, live data, dashboard reporting and the systems which are getting, who is using OLTP systems and getting their bosses hammering to get the data in their dashboards, right? Who is trying to use analysis services to be live on the OLTP system? So many. Okay.
Nearly too live?
Okay, real time, right? So I'm confident that even those people who are still with me on my side, who are still love and who still believe that T-SQL is the best language ever, they have heard about the direct query. They have heard about the rollup. So before we continue, just one question. Who has successfully applied direct query or roll-up in production? The gentleman on the second row, I'm so sorry. Please don't take it as offense. He's like sitting, listening to the question. He's like this, then starts, and then like, no, no. This is why I love it. To production, yes. Probably you like try, plate, QA. Okay, so this is the story of everybody's life in my personal opinion.
So does this count? We have a direct query solution getting data out of a multi-dimensional cube?
Pretty much.
This is in production.
Okay, so it's a pretty much direct query, kind of. So there are significant differences in approaches, right? So there is no standard edition support for direct query. There is no caching, no proactive caching. They're just firing up on the role store, column store on the relational database. From the other side, there is some caching on the multidimensional, and maybe you can use multidimensional with the rollup as a solution when your direct query on tabular does not work. So we went just a little bit forward and we built two-dimensional models, and then we converted them to direct query and rollup, and we decided, breaking news, that actually rollup is quite difficult to deal with or to live with. So I have an executive dashboard, right, with something like this. Let's take a look if I can still zoom it. Wow, now some people left and the bandwidth got better, right? You see the point? So you see, it's just some aggregation here with some calculation, pretty crazy numbers, right? And so this is direct query. So if I click on Azure, you've seen the T-SQL query, and this is Columnstore. Like, for real, I know it will scare you. But if I click on Azure, it will open the regions there, and it will be like, right? I click on it, and then I'll go to grab some coffee. Have you ever seen this? And it's just like, if you are not convinced, and you're starting running direct query or rollup, please do like 2, don't do 3, because you will need to go to lunch on the 3rd level of the hierarchy when you open. And please just go and open 1, 2, 3, open all of them, and be ready to spend some time, Maybe you grab a cup of tea.
But if you open everything at once, you can go for lunch. Afterwards, everything is in cache.
Right. So if I click right now on close on that item, it will be fast, right? Let's do the mission. 1, 2, whatever. I'm gone. I'm grabbing my coffee. Where is the nearest Starbucks, right? So when I saw this, when we were preparing this session, I'm like, I need to get to the bottom of this. And I know we're live. I know we're recording this. So, well, I went, and as a relational guy, of what I did. Of course, using the extended events. No profiler. Who loves profiler, please do not raise your hand. I'm just not watching.
Who working with...
Yes, I wouldn't expect you, Erland,
Who working with analysis services is still used to using profiler because extended event wasn't available at the time?
Let's not go there. We will be blamed for a lot of things we are not responsible for. So you see this, if you've never seen, every click generates something like top whatever number. I even increase it, to get a bigger memory grants, to get impressive. So it starts with what, 100,000, 1 million. I'm still struggling with understanding of concept. We're getting data into Excel and somebody saying top 1 million rows. That kills really. My brains are gone at this point. So I took the query and I was really nasty person. I really went through this query, and I tried to understand what both engines are generating, what kind of queries. Have you ever, who tried to do this? Oh, okay, a couple of people. Looks beautiful, isn't it? Oh, that's one incredible beauty. So, just an example. You do not have to read this. This is just joining a couple of tables. We start here, right? Right? And I change it, I tweak it, so right now it had, I believe it's top 1 million, so right now it's top 10 million. So I want to try to put those 10 million rows into my Excel. So this is a formatted query. It took some time for me, so it's basically select, from select, from select, from select, then all of them, from left outer join select, from select, from select, from left outer join select, from table, left outer join. It's just like, wow, 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 wow. So 70 plus lines for a query, right? Would you like to see how a T-SQL person would write this query? So this is the query. And let me make it bigger so you can see all of the query. Yes, my zooming skills and my scrolling skills. Is there a course on Pluralsight for that? Yes. So basically what I'm trying to do here is to do an inner join, 2 joins, 3 joins. And do you remember any of the inner joins in the query that the direct query and roll up? Between the select, from select, from select, from select, there are just left outer joins. Because when one of those engines go into and ask the meta information, I don't know if they check for the foreign keys or they just like, oh, they have foreign keys, let's still try to run the left outer joins. We'll still get the same results, but the performance will be the worst ever. And they really managed that, really surprisingly. So analyzing the execution plans brought me to some very interesting ideas. So if you ever seen the filter iterator in the execution plans, they are evil. So this guy doesn't take just 5%. He takes around 80% of the execution. Because they're just like, this is where you burn the CPU. You know, you have an oven, you throw the rows that will get burned, processed, in other words. And what the other query would do, and let me just show it to you, it uses something which is called storage engine predicate pushdown. So it will not use the burning of CPU, but it will do the filtering of the rows while reading them. Do you expect the first or the second query to be faster? So I expect first to be a little bit faster, but just like maybe around 80 times. Meaning that if you ever have a thought of, well, I'm using Rollstore, I'm migrating to Columnstore, and everything will be working fine. Well, not. Breaking news. Because the queries issued by direct query and by rollup, they're so bad that your Columnstore indexes won't help you. They will not be able to help you with the performance at all. So I went and just like, Contoso, my favorite database of all time, Contoso Retail Data Warehouse, just 12.6 million rows within the fact online sales table. So I run the query, and the first query is the generated. You see Columnstore index scan, no predicate pushdown. Here, the engine was a little bit more honest, and it put 78% on the filter, all right? So this is where the magic happens. And to prove it to you, just a second. So you see predicate a different Contoso stores. So it pushed it out. Why? Because of the left outer joins, right? Which make absolutely no sense. And here you can see, where is my Columnstore? This is, because here on the other query, I have here a row store index scan, because those are within the row store table, within my dimension table. And it went, and while reading, how many? 306 rows, then applied the filters. So the performance was quite shocking. So actually, I made a mistake. So the first query issued by OLAP took 11.5 seconds from my Excel. The Columnstore query took 1.7 seconds, right? Does it look scary? Does it? So, and then I was thinking, and I was like, well, the promise of Columnstore is different. What is the biggest difference between the execution plans? This is an 8-core machine. It's a little tip. Yes, thank you very much. The first plan is running in parallel. It's burning not 1 CPU, but 8. So I went, oh, there is a solution for that. Where is my mouse? Little mouse. And I'm like, okay, it's not 11.5. I have to multiply it 8 times, actually. So, and I'm like, okay, if I get the right key. So this is more correct. This looks, in the terms of the resources, you can see what you will get through the direct query and through the roll-up if you want to go real time. And this is what you can get if you will not do this. Of course, you can process the partitions and all the stuff. But have you seen the partitioning queries running against the underlying table? If you partition by year, it will apply the predicate on the left, on so-called left side, making any usage of the indexes impossible. So it's a very interesting beast, those direct queries and the roll-ups, in my opinion. Do you have anything to confess?
About Rollup, the only thing I can say is it was created before Columnstore was available. Okay. No, but to be honest, I think it might be pretty hard just to get from the certain modeling perspective you get from creating your models from a perspective like improving the upload, which actually partitioning also is meant for, just processing the data you really need, not processing everything all the time. And apart from that, it's also improving query performance in your pre-calculated part, because this helps you, just like an index, to only read from certain partitions. But this is actually something which might be not a very good choice if we are talking about direct query or roll-up. So I still think it would be a good way if it would be possible to have direct query and roll-up getting somewhat optimized in the future to really work with the relational power we have available there. And this is actually something where we both agree.
For the first time? Maybe no. The only thing we agree on?
But actually it's something which might get really complicated to be built, and which is something which I don't think will be available very soon. But it might be a very good solution for the future, because it can solve the problem we have at the moment, that we have the best performance or nearly the best performance when we directly go to our data source. But we have the problem of creating this BI semantic layer we talked about on top. Still, we have the problem, this only works for data getting out of SQL Server, but this is in a lot of our cases, I think, the major part of the data, and still this would be something which might be interesting for the future.
So I have to make a confession. After, I believe it's the 5th time we present in this session, after the 5th time, I'm starting to become convinced that semantical model even can make some sense. Sometimes,
and
in some certain cases.
He's definitely saying this for the first time.
We're on the record. I would never lie if this only while presenting. You broke my line of thought. So I do confess that the semantic model is extremely important Because, you know, if you want a hierarchy, I mean, do you want to write a hierarchy into SQL? Most probably not. If you have existing tools accessing the data, well, maybe you do not want your users to write a SQL. So I don't want my users to write a SQL, with all the respect for them if they're watching me. No, in Europe it's very late, they won't. I'm confident. So it's incredible what both of those solutions can offer, and there is an overlap. And I think that the analysis services overall have been a little bit nasty, taking over the part which doesn't belong to them. If you ever used, like I guess all of us, analysis services to speed up your queries, you're not using the semantic models, maybe, and you're not using the tools. You're not dependent on DAX, MDX. If Columnstore didn't took over yet, it will. The performance part is challenged, and there are less reasons to keep using cubes just for that. Even Microsoft itself has already had, I believe last year for 2016, a case where they described that the company just throw away their cubes and went using the Columnstore indexes, and their dashboards got better response time. But if you're using the analysis services for what they were meant for the semantic model, please, I mean, it's just like, is it fast enough to substitute the color green? Makes no sense, right? So please do not give up on analysis services yet. The Columnstore team is probably working on that, but just, you know, just a word of warning.
So dream on.
I can. All right. So we say thank you very much for your patience. If you have any questions, please fire them away. And we, not me, Gabi and Jason XML are here to answer them.
And also the next 2 days. So
yes, thank you very much.
Thank you.